Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked where I climb the online series 11 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. A couple of days ago, I ran into a player with a really interesting physical Seismitoad team, and I got wrecked against them. If you want to see that battle, I have linked it down in the description below. Turns out that player had actually ended up finishing 7th and 10th on the ranked ladder for the previous ranked season, which just ended, and they were actually kind enough to post this team, make it public, and post a team report about it in Japanese. So I've linked the original creator's Twitter down in the description below, as well as their team report in Japanese, and a rental and a paste for the team. And of course, in tradition, I have to try out this team because I got wrecked against it, and I thought it was really interesting. I've actually featured Seismitoad in Series 11 already, so this is not the first time we're using this Pokemon, but of course this is a physical Seismitoad set rather than a special Seismitoad set. And actually, when I played against this opponent and ran into this team, I didn't even think about the possibility of physical Seismitoad. So with that alone, you have the element of surprise on your side. And so you might be wondering, well, why would you want to use Seismitoad in this format? First of all, it actually has a really good matchup against a lot of common non-restricted Pokemon, like Regieleki, Incineroar, Landorus-T, for example, and it's a really strong Dynamax option. It gets an incredible move pool, and actually gets access to Bounce, allowing you to max Airstream as well. Fun fact, that's the only flying type attack that it gets, and when I went up against it, I didn't even expect max Airstream from it. So that allows you to boost your partner's speed, and that's really valuable, especially with Pokemon like Kyogre and Zapdos on the team. To round out the Seismitoad, you're supporting it with the Salt Vest Kyogre. You don't need Kyogre to be as offensive with this set because you've got the dual screens from Grimmsnarl as well. So Kyogre will often stay on the field for multiple turns and just, be able to spam Origin Pulse, or even better, Water Spout if you're able to, just attack before your opponent can really move. You've also got Safety Goggles, Zapdos. This is a set that is very, very good into Sun teams, and of course, Kyogre Seismitoad doesn't, love going up against Sun, and so Zapdos here can be a hard counter to it. We featured it on the channel before, and the idea is that you can very safely, play against Venusaur, Charizard, Groudon, for example. Eerie Impulse in particular is very, very strong to Charizard and Venusaur, and then you can Roost to just heal back as well. And then finally, to round out the team, you've got dual screens like Clay Grimmsnarl, pretty standard. Do note Scary Face here. Scary Face is actually a really important move for speed control because Seismitoad is obviously quite powerful in the rain, but this team does not have Tailwind, unlike the previous Seismitoad team we featured. So as a result, if you're going up against teams with Tailwind and faster Pokemon like Zacian and Calyrex, you will just get outsped. So Scary Face adds another dimension of speed control to allow you to just KO things with Seismitoad before they can attack. Finally, you've got Chople and Incineroar. The Chople is really helpful against Zacian and allows you to, just take a Sacred Sword or a close combat and then retaliate back with the Flare Blitz. And then Iron Barbs, Leftovers, Body Press, Iron Defense, Ferrothorn, which is a set that we've seen a fair amount of throughout, all of Sword and Shield VGC. It's one that's maybe not as common these days, especially because it's kind of weak into Sacred Sword Zacian. But once again, it's one of those sets that can just hard win you games if your opponent does not have, the right coverage for it. So overall, I think Seismitoad is the primary star of this team. It is going to Dynamax the majority of the times. You can max Kyogre pretty well as well. Zapdos and Incin can be max options, although less frequently. I think Zapdos might want to consider it in like the Sun matchup, and then Incin can against Zacian if you don't really have any better options. But I think Seismitoad is just such a strong Dynamax option with this team. Like if you're bringing it, you almost always want to max that or Kyogre. So yeah, I'm excited to give this team a shot, so thanks so much as always for watching. If you enjoyed, please show your support by leaving a like in the video. I'd really appreciate it. And question of the day, I want to know what Pokemon you think just deserves a higher base attack or special attack, especially in Series 11 at the moment. For me, I look at some of the restricted Pokemon that aren't as popular, and Lugia, I understand if it had a higher special attack, it would probably be really strong in singles, but in doubles, it just feels bad that it can only rely on weakness policy sets to really go off, and so that's one answer that jumps to my mind. But let me know yours in the comment section below, and let's get started. Alright, first game of the day, and feels very fitting to go up against the team we just featured. Okay, so obviously this team is still very fresh, and the team we're going up against is the one that I had just featured in the last 2 episodes. If you want to check me trying out that team, which I think is incredibly strong, check out the links in the description below. Now, the key thing to watch out for here is going to be that switcheroo coming out from the Whimsicott. So I want to play very, very carefully around that. Now, they don't have great water resistances, so Seismitoad offensively is actually very strong here, especially because they don't have Intimidate either. So I want to play towards Seismitoad, Kyogre, Grimmsnarl. I think Ferrothorn does not make very much sense here. They're just way too fast-paced on offensive, and I think Incin naturally is a pretty easy fourth to bring. I don't mind Grimmsnarl as a lead. Could be Zapdos as well. I don't really like Zapdos too much here, though. Whimsicott Thundurus is probably their scariest lead. Okay, I'm down for Grimmsnarl, Seismitoad, Incineroar plus Kyogre. I think the play here is to get up screens and then try to sweep with Seismitoad. If I'm my opponent, I would probably go Whimsicott, Thundurus, Calyrex, Lele. You could bring Urshifu as well. There's an argument for that. I don't think Entei makes too much sense in this matchup, but you could bring it if you're super scared of Ferrothorn. I don't think they really need to be, though. Yeah, it's Whimsicott, Thundurus. Okay. Okay. So, if I were them, I don't know. I would expect a switcheroo into Seismitoad turn 1. I really don't want to get ejected out. Reflect is always safe. What if I Reflect, yeah, and then I go into Kyogre. So the idea behind this, I'm trying to bait out Switcheroo. I don't think they're ever going to max Lightning, so it's like, at least not Lightning into Seismitoad, right? So the idea is to bait out Switcheroo on turn 1 at least. This is why the opposing team is so strong, by the way, and why I like featuring it so much. As you saw while we were trying it, like, even if you don't get the Switcheroo off, you're still honestly in pretty good shape often. But the idea is to bait out their Dynamax early, stall it out, get rid of the Switcheroo, so then we just prime ourselves for a complete Seismitoad sweep, essentially. And with Reflect Up and with the lack of Life Orb on Thundurus, it's not as scary. I guess one interesting consideration there is just attacking with Seismitoad immediately, but I would just get outsped, and then you would steal my Life Orb away and force me out. And if Switcheroo comes out, then Whimsicott's locked into... Yeah, perfect. Now you steal my Assault Vest away, but you can't go for Tailwind anymore, which is exactly what I was looking for. Cool. Okay, good. And now with the lack of Tailwind, this means now that my Seismitoad can just outspeed my opponent's entire team for the remainder of this game. Oh, they actually offer Max Knuckle. Okay. I think that's a strong play. Give yourself an attack boost, covers for any switch out options as well. But the most important thing right now is that you no longer can Tailwind. And with the inability to Tailwind, 2 Max Geysers here should knock out the Thundurus. Now, the scary thing is I brought Incin and Grimmsnarl. These aren't exactly huge offensive tools for me. Although, Incin's actually going to be quite good against the Lele Calyrex combo that they have in the back. So, I don't mind just going straight out into Seismitoad in this position, I think. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to ever bring in Incineroar here to just activate Define on Thundurus, and we really don't want that to snowball, right, and get it to +2 attack immediately. Now, the interesting thing with Seismitoad is I could choose to target around the Whimsicott, but Whimsicott's pretty useless for my opponent right now. The only thing it can do is actually click Moonblast. So for that reason, I don't mind, say, just going for a Light Screen here. We Dynamax the Seismitoad, and then we just max Geyser into Thundurus. Geyser should be a 2-hit KO onto Thundurus, and even if you Airstream here, we should still outpace you going into the next turn. Then what we'll have done is set up a late game where we'll have Light Screen up, we'll have Incineroar and Kyogre. Unfortunately, Kyogre won't have its Assault Vest, so that's kind of a downside. If we had AV, Kyogre handled this late game so well. So another consideration I could have had was not bringing Incineroar and just bringing something like Zapdos or Ferrothorn solely to trade its item, because without AV on Kyogre, I do lose a lot of value on it. So even though like turn 1 went pretty well, I mean, I would have preferred to see an Airstream rather than attack boost, but with Reflect being up, we should take Max Airstream on Seismitoad decently well, and then I'll get both screens up as well. So the idea is, yeah, basically make sure we don't get ejected on turn 1 and then try to sweep with Seismitoad in this endgame. I don't think Geyser will one-shot Thundurus, though, unfortunately, despite us being physical. But being physical here at least is nice, right? Like, if we were special, I'm not even sure we could 2-hit KO Assault Vest Thundurus. Okay, so here's Max Geyser from the Toad. I would think 70%? No, actually like 90. Spirit Break there may have just finished it off. I don't mind going for, because like we'll finish it off this next turn anyway, right? Okay, they're gonna Moonblast, yep. The cool thing is now I can potentially boost Kyogre's speed via Max Airstreams as well. They're gonna just Airstream into Toad, yep. Okay, cool. I guess my one thing that I want to double check here is how fast my opponent is with Thundurus after the speed boost. And whether or not we outspeed. Oh, I'm not sure we do, actually. So, for that reason, we always have a safe play here. I can just go for Scary Face. to drop Thundurus' speed. It's not grounded, so it's not affected by Psychic Terrain. Do I think Max Airstream KOs from this range? Speed Boost would be pretty nice right now. Oh, it doesn't really matter, though, honestly. I don't think. Yeah, let's just ensure KO here. And we know it's Assault Vest Thundurus, so this is guaranteed. Okay. And while this activates Defiant, because my opponent never set up Tailwind, I don't have to worry about it. So you always want to, you know, be very careful when you intentionally activate Defiant, but in a position like this, we're totally fine to go for it. And now we'll get the knockout onto Thundurus. Now this game is still far from over, but once again, the good thing is that my opponent cannot set up a Tailwind at any point in the match. If I'm my opponent now, what do I bring in? Maybe Tapu Lele? If you bring in Lele, I could always pivot out into... Well, actually, I would just one-shot Tapu Lele. Like, the good thing for us right now is we don't have to care about the Whimsicott. We can just attack around it. So I actually think you bring out Calyrex, right? And then you just expanding Force. And Moonblast. And I think their last Pokemon should be Tapu Lele. I can't protect here, which is slightly scary. And also, Psychic Terrain wasn't even up, so... that means I could Scary Face it right now. What's the field state? If we assume they have Lele as their final Pokemon, I can't Fake Out with Incineroar. And then how fast is my Kyogre here? 130. So I don't outspeed after a speed boost, which is... a little unfortunate. Okay, I'm down to Scary Face, Whimsicott, and Airstream it. They stay in, nice. The idea here is just to guarantee the knockout onto Whimsicott, because I know you can't protect, and if you switch out, that's fine, you would just go into Lele, obviously. So we get another knockout here. If Tapu Lele is their final Pokemon, I'll just have Liquidation in the rain, and I think that should just be a knockout onto Lele. And if we knock out Tapu Lele, then Incineroar just always wins against Calyrex in the end game. Not to mention we still have a Kyogre as well, but I still have to play this pretty carefully. Yep, there's Astro Barrage. Okay, and neither gets knocked out. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, we set ourselves up perfectly in this game. And this is where, like, you know, when you use a team that is popular and other people catch on to it, the element of surprise gets taken away, and that can give you a pretty big advantage. But, oh, interestingly enough, their last Pokemon is actually Entei. I'm not sure I saw that one coming. Okay. Now, this actually poses a problem for us, because it means you can extreme speed us for a KO. Oh, man. That's a really good bring by them. Okay, but here's the thing. We can always Scary Face into Calyrex, and then this just sets up Kyogre for the end game. And then just switch into Incineroar right now. I don't even mind sacrificing Seismitoad here, I think. I'm making the switch. I don't know if that's actually the right play. The main thing is I didn't want to give Calyrex any special attack boosts right now, and Astro Barrage just does no damage to either of these Pokemon at the moment. Smart decision to not bring Lele. I think Entei... Yeah, they brought Entei to try to deal with Ferrothorn, which I think makes a lot of sense. So there's Z-Speed. Yep. Okay, perfect. We take that well. Good. I get Scary Face now into Calyrex, so now I outspeed that with the Kyogre, which is really pivotal. And then they're just going to Astro Barrage. Perfect. Yeah, you can see how good screens are for us in this game as well. It's giving us so much utility. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, rain stops since we've timed it perfectly with the Kyogre in the back as well. So at this point, Kyogre should outspeed the Calyrex, right? And so now I can just Scary Face into Entei. There's still multiple turns of screens left, which is perfect. You probably go for a Stone Edge here into Incineroar. And I think Seismitoad's always going to faint from an extreme speed anyway. So I don't mind switching it out here. Because Incin is my hard answer against Calyrex in this endgame. So the thing is, now I have dropped both of my opponent's speed with multiple turns of Light Screen. This is a little bit scary if they... because they could obviously just Astro Barrage here. Yeah, get a knockout. But then the thing is, I just bring Kyogre and I just click Water Spout. This will give them a special attack boost, but I think Kyogre should be able to survive this endgame. Maybe it was correct to just stay in with Incin there and give it up so they don't get a free special attack boost. That actually may have been the better play now that I think about it. Because they will pick up a double knockout here now. Yep, there's Stone Edge. Okay. And the problem is I still don't outspeed Calyrex with the Incineroar. So now if you're my opponent, your play is to... I don't think Astro Barrage should KO Kyogre here because we have Light Screen up. So I think we're fine, especially because this is a bulky Kyogre. The only thing is, do I click Water Spout here? Because if you're my opponent, you could also just opt for the Extreme Speed play instead. And Life Orb Extreme Speed does a substantial amount of damage. This is still really tricky. I can't fake out, obviously, either Pokemon. Both Pokemon do have access to Protect here. I just don't know. Water Spout in Rain. We still have 3 turns of Light Screen and 2 turns of Reflect. I think it's better to go for Water Spout here. Like, the chances of missing one Origin Pulse is just too high for me to be comfortable with. So, I'll just Water Spout and Darkest Lariat. And if you're my opponent, there's 2 potential plays to make here. The first one is actually to protect the Entei. Actually, I think protecting Entei is always correct here. You can see how strong the opposing team is, by the way, right? That's why I just featured it. It like, even though I feel like I played relatively well here, and I knew the switcheroo trick, it's still a tough position. And credits to my opponent here, because they made the really smart decision to actually bring Entei over Tapu Lele, which I think also saves them. Oh, interesting. They E-Speed, but they target the Incineroar. So I think they were probably reading into a Protect there on Kyogre, but I actually don't even have Protect. Actually, they should know I don't have Protect, because they saw the Assault Vest. So, yeah, that one is surprising to me, because I don't think Astro Barrage should finish us off here. And even if it does, you need a double crit here, actually, in order to win right now. I think if either avoid the crit, we should be good, and we both do. Okay, perfect. Yeah, credits to them bringing Entei. I think Entei makes sense, because otherwise Ferrothorn can seem really scary, although I was thinking Ferrothorn is still not that good against them, especially because, like, our only damage with it is Body Press, and so I didn't feel super good into it, but I was thinking their last one was always going to be Lele, and if it were Lele, then, you know, we just Liquidation, one-shot the Tapu Lele in the rain, and then it's like a 4v1 or 3v1 against the Calyrex, and then Incin just hard wins that, so, yeah. This team, of course, is the one we just featured, so if you want to try it out, check out the last 2 episodes, you can see it in action, and, of course, it's a rental and a paste for it as well. So, yeah. E-Speed there, in the end, into the Incin was surprising. But I think they were maybe just reading into... Well, actually, yeah, you should know I don't have Protect on Kyogre because of the Assault Vest, but it's pretty easy to miss something like that as well, so maybe they had just forgotten about it. But either way, I think if you target Kyogre there, maybe you do enough damage where Water Spout doesn't KO the Entei. Although, based off how much or how little we took, and given that we had Reflect, I think Spout still would have finished off Entei. Even if we're just over 50%, like, Entei would have already taken 3 ticks of Life Orb as well. But the fear there is we don't get the knockout onto it, then Astro Barrage finishes the Kyogre off. I don't think it would have, but if it does, if they crit there, and Darkest Lariat KOs the Calyrex, and it's a 1v1 Entei against the Incineroar, and then they can just Stone Edge to win the game. So, yeah. Either way, though, Seismitoad put in a ton of work in that one, and we fortunately didn't get switcherooed, but we had to work really hard for that win, and of course we had an advantage knowing my opponent's team, given that I had just featured it as well. So that team is just really, really darn powerful, and that last game should show you why. But let's look for another one. Next game of the day, and it's a Yveltal team with Alolan Ninetales. Okay, that one's really interesting. Now, they do have dual Intimidate, so Seismitoad may not thrive as much here. Although, once again, the strength of this team is that you scare your opponents away from bringing both of those Pokemon thanks to dual Weather here. I think Zapdos could be a possible max option for us in this game. Got Eerie Impulse as well, which is interesting. Dark Urshifu makes more sense here, but I don't think it's going to be Focus Sash because Ninetales running Sash makes more sense. And if you have Sash on Urshifu, you'd break it with Ninetales' Hail, but it could be like Light Play Ninetales, Magnetaleki, Life Orb Aleki, and then Sash Urshifu still. I don't think this is the right matchup for Ferrothorn here, so I probably don't want to bring that. They don't have any water resistances or immunities, right? So like Kyogre and Seismitoad obviously look really strong here. I do think I should bring Zapdos. Ninetales is actually probably my primary fear here, interestingly enough. Okay. I'm going to try Grim, Zapdos, Kyogre, Seismitoad. I don't love leading Kyogre or Seismitoad because of the fact they can lead Ninetales or just switch Ninetales in. Incineroar. It's not a terrible option here. We don't get too much value out of the Chopo Berry, sadly, but it still makes some sense to bring in. But the thing is that, like, a lot of their attackers are special attackers, and then, like, the instant still gets chunked away for way too much damage from something like Landorus, for example. Okay, Incineroar, I feel like it's got to be Ninetales and, Ninetales and the Yveltal for the final two Pokemon. I don't really want to max Zapdos here. If you're my opponent, you can just Fake Out and max Lightning. I think switching Grimmsnarl out into Seismitoad so that I can get screens up seems pretty nice. And I could see Alecki pivoting out, but I think most likely it actually Dynamaxes and goes for max Lightning here. But if that's the case, Seismitoad completely walls it. So I don't mind just going for an Eerie Impulse onto Alecki in case they do end up maxing on turn 1. Like, let's say they Fake Out and max Lightning the Grimmsnarl slot. This is legit like a game-winning play on turn 1. And the one thing to watch out for here is that they max Strike Grimmsnarl. But, okay, they're just going to Fake Out into Toad. Could be Volt Switch here. Okay, that works as well. No problem. Nice. Now we get Eerie Impulse. Cool. So the cool thing now is I can just Dynamax Seismitoad and Geyser Incineroar. You have no safe switching into that. I don't even need the Rain right now. And then I can also just Thunderbolt into the Alecki slot. If you Volt Switch, you're probably going into Yveltal or the Ninetales. Neither of those are super strong right now. So this is a perfect example of positioning where turn 1, we weren't in a bad spot, but turn 2, we're in such a good spot where my opponent's Pokemon don't put on any offensive pressure. They can't really deal much damage, especially thanks to the Eerie Impulse. Okay, I like the idea of hard switching there. And they're going to bring in Yveltal for that slot. Okay, that makes sense. But the thing is, now your Yveltal takes so much damage, especially because we're physical. And that's the main upside of physical Seismitoad, right? Your opponents are almost always going to expect special. I certainly was when I went up against it and I lost against it, right? It's part of the reason why I got wrecked against it. So the idea here is that your AV Yveltal is not going to take a Life Orb Max Geyser from physical Seismitoad super well. And will do enough damage where, you know, you basically can't comfortably max Yveltal going into the next turn of the game. And there's Volt Switch. Oh, I guess the cool thing... Oh, man, that's such a bad crit. That's really frustrating. Just because now we're in KO range from a Fake Out or a Sucker Punch, but it happens. So I would think Incineroar actually comes out now. Yeah. And it's mainly the fact that it gets to ignore the boost, but that was a really nice play by my opponent. They pivoted out really, really smartly. Okay, that one's definitely a little frustrating, but it's okay. It happens. I could have opted for Roost to cover the crit, I suppose, but I'm not sure I really love that idea. And that also looks like a Salt Vest instant to me, but I'm not 100% sure. Pretty good damage from Geyser still. The thing is, now they can max the Yveltal because they actually pivoted the Intimidate back in. That was really well done. I could always Geyser onto the instant slot, which is what I lean towards right now. And then switch Zapdos out into Grimmsnarl. Okay, I think I like that. The problem, though, is that I didn't do enough damage into Yveltal, so now it can actually heal up with Oblivion Wing. You could even Dynamax Yveltal, actually, although I wouldn't mind that very much. This is probably, what, Ninetales coming in now? Yeah. That's okay, though, because by going for Geyser, I just changed the weather, so I don't mind this too much. I wonder if Yveltal maxes. I feel like you should probably max here, but could also go for Sucker Punch. Okay, it's just Snarl. I'm totally okay with Snarl because of the fact that I am not a physical, or I'm not a special Seismitoad. And now you've brought in your weather control in a little bit early. So this next turn, I guess what's interesting about this next turn is, you know, I obviously have to respect Freeze Dry from them. They don't have any water resistances, right? So Geyser is a pretty safe bet onto either Pokemon here. And it should knock out Yveltal, but they could always switch Ninetales back out. I've got Kyogre in the back. See, the thing is, if you're my opponent, I think you look towards Dynamaxing your Regieleki. Meaning that if you're my opponent, your main goal is to just KO Seismitoad as quickly as possible. So here, I don't mind going for a Geyser, I think, and then just a Spirit Break. I don't need a Light Screen or Reflect right now. Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. That crit changes a lot, though, because... well, maybe it doesn't. Because, like, even without the crit, a Dynamax Lightning would still KO us. Yeah, so they're going to switch out once again, which I think is smart. Just for further weather control. Yep, there's Instinct coming in. If we can get the knockout with the -2 Geyser and Rain, that would be really, really good for us right now. I'm just not sure we do. And they finally Dynamax Yveltal. Okay. Now, the good thing about them maxing here is, like, you can't heal up with Oblivion Wing, right? So you're kind of on a timer in terms of your HP. You also can't go for Sucker Punch, which is actually really important with the Zapdos in the back. But the problem is I won't be able to heal up very easily with Zapdos. Now, I do have Scary Face, so I can always Scary Face Regieleki. Oh, and they Max Guard! Okay, amazing. That's really good. It's another reason to not target the Yveltal there. Nice, and Physical Toad gets the KO onto Incineroar. Okay, cool. The only downside is I wasted an opportunity to get a free screens up there, but I can still go for a screen this next turn. Okay. So I would... them having Ninetales just makes it so awkward because they can, like, pivot out and back in and out and back in. I think I Light Screen this next turn, for sure. I'd probably give up Zapdos here, right? Like, it's so low HP anyway. Yeah. So, I'll switch in Zapdos here and then just get Light Screen up this turn, I think. What's interesting if you're my opponent is you might also consider switching out Ninetales at some point to regain weather control, because you don't want me to obviously have weather up going into this endgame. They can also boost their speed via Max Airstream, which I think is one of my primary concerns right now. Actually, Spirit Break into the Ninetales slot may have just been better here, but I don't know. Light Screen for the remainder of the game just seems so nice to have, and they fortunately do target the Seismitoad slot. Okay, excellent. So that's good. And then it's probably a Max Airstream here. Yeah. Okay. This is going to be a really close finish, I think. Okay, now I can bring in... Also, we know they have Protect, so it's Snarl, Oblivion Wing, Protect, and I would think Sucker Punch. I have two options here. The first is to go into Seismitoad and then just switch the Kyogre in. I don't even think Liquidation KOs, though, so I think we just go to AV Kyogre out immediately right now. If you're my opponent now, it's also awkward because, like, do you switch Ninetales out? Regieleki can't really take any attack easily, right? So I don't mind Origin Pulsing here with Kyogre. The question is what I want to do with Grimmsnarl. The first option is to just Scary Face the Ninetales and ensure that I outspeed. I could Reflect to reduce Sucker Punch damage. Or I could Spirit Break. I just think it's really unlikely I get Spirit Break off. Also, if they're Max Airstreaming, though, it just basically counter... Okay, so I'm going to Origin Pulse. I mean, if I get the Spirit Break off because they switch Ninetales out and, like, don't KO Grimmsnarl, that would be a game-winning play. But they are just going to Freeze Dry into Kyogre. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, with the Assault Vest, we really don't take that much. And they just Airstream, yep. If we survive this, we should win the game. Oh! Actually, we should win if we hit the Origin Pulse. We need to hit them, too. Although, now I regret not going for Water Spout. Nice. Origin Pulse double connects. Okay, sweet. And Spirit Break should finish off Yveltal. Oof. This was a really intense one. I feel like we had a really good advantage in matchup, but my opponent played really nicely with the Ninetales, and they just made really good switches. The turn 1 Volt Switch, or turn 2 Volt Switch play was really good. Like, to be able to pivot Yveltal in relatively safely, while also getting that Intimidate off was a really big deal. But now we should just win the game, because we have Seismitoad in the back. Aleki's never beating Seismitoad, because we have Stomping Tantrum. In this position, I can just go for Water Spout. Actually, wait, what's Kyogre's speed here? Do we even outspeed even at -2? 130, no we don't. So it's actually better to just Ice Beam here for guaranteed damage. And Scary Face. I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't think Alecki can ever win against Seismitoad in this endgame. But yeah, basically what we want to cover for is Alecki having Hyper Beam in that position. They could obviously Electro Web there, right? So like no need to risk any misses. Just go for guaranteed damage. The Scary Face just helps in case they like infinitely stall out Rain. And then that way, even with the Scary Face, you know, we can just outspeed with our Pokemon. So Seismitoad put in a ton of work in that one. And then, yeah, hanging out with 1 HP with Grimmstar was obviously a really big deal. If we don't hang on there, though, I think we're still maybe okay. Because the Yveltal would be really low HP. I would get a free switch into the Seismitoad. And then the end game would be Seismitoad and Kyogre in the rain against Regieleki and Yveltal, and we're Salt Vested, and we still have Light Screen up. So I can just Stomping Tantrum into the Alecki slot. I'm not sure Yveltal can KO either Pokemon there. If I think Yveltal can KO Seismitoad, then it's a decision with Seismitoad on who to target. But we also have Assault Vest and Light Screen up with Kyogre, so I think an Origin Pulse could just pick up a double KO from that range as well. So I didn't mind the endgame too much, even if Grimmsnarl did faint there. But that's exactly why I wanted to go for Spirit Break, because I didn't think I was going to get any value out of Scary Face. Just because even if I bring Ninetales down to -1, it'd be a -2, but they obviously had a speed boost from Airstream. Well, Yveltal's just going to Airstream in, bring it back to neutral anyway. So it's just a waste of an attack by going through Spirit Break there. And we actually ended up surviving because they ended up freeze-drying the Kyogre. Then, yeah, that just instantly won us the game. So, yeah, some fun games here, and let's look for one final one. All right, final game of the day. And it is, okay, a run back of the first game. I mean, if anything, that first game showed me how scary this can be, because I thought I played well, and even with that, it still felt way too close for comfort. So I feel like Whimsicott Thundurus is a pretty reasonable lead to expect again. The adjustment I can make is not bringing in Incineroar, but Incine's just so nice as insurance in the late game against the Calyrex. Yeah. I don't know, I feel like the game plan here can still work. And I didn't feel like I needed to make any predictions, hard predictions past turn 1 of that last match, right? So it's still okay. It was just so close for how I felt like the early game panned out. That's the thing, once again, right? It's like, it's relatively low cost to go for the switcheroo play, but very high benefit. Is there any other combo I can go with? I just really don't... I mean, I even went up against Entei in the last one, so I don't think it's ever Ferrothorn. It could be Zapdos, but, like... Zapdos over Incineroar actually makes some sense here. I'm not going for it, just because, like, even in the worst case, which was the last game, and they brought Entei, like, it was still fine, but the reason I'd consider bringing Zapdos is to... And I don't know if this is the absolute best approach, right? It worked in the last game, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a better kind of flow chart against this matchup. I just don't know what it is yet. And this worked in the last game. It's Thundurus Calyrex here. Okay, so I don't have to deal with Switcheroo at least, which is good. And I know that Max Geyser does, what, like 90% to Thundurus. So that's also an important calc. The problem here is I can't one-shot either Pokemon on turn 1. That's the main downside. I can set up screens to start. Would I rather set up Reflect or Light Screen? I think Reflect, because Thundurus maxing here is pretty high probability. Okay. I'm going to Reflect. I'm just going to Dynamax, and then I'm just going to Geyser into Thundurus, I think. This is a cool lead. I didn't really consider it. Although it feels like if I had just gone with Kyogre plus the... No, Kyogre plus Seismitoad actually doesn't just hard win immediately. And I'm glad to see a completely different combination from my opponent here. I think like one thing that makes Pokemon so interesting is you can play with the same teams and play like 10 games and they can all play out in completely different manners, right? So this is a cool adjustment. Now, the main thing is like Grimmsnarl's not in a bad spot. Oh, he could have even... See, the thing is, I don't think I ever want to switch Seismitoad out here. I don't have Protect on it either, which makes it a little bit awkward, but I think... We know Thundurus is AV, so my problem here is, unfortunately, I don't think Seismitoad will get 3 attacks off in this game, but if I trade Seismitoad for Thundurus and also get screens up, I feel like it's not that bad of a trade for us. Oh, and they Protect. That is amazing for us. That is absolutely amazing. Yeah, that puts us in a really good spot regardless of what they go for here, truthfully. It's probably a Max Airstream. Yep. They're going to target Grimmsnarl. Okay, it doesn't even do half. Beautiful. What this means is this next turn, I can just go for Scary Face into Geyser to just ensure the knockout onto Thundurus, meaning that Thundurus only ever gets 1 attack off in this game. I feel like that's pretty good, right? Yeah. Okay. Astro Barrage is certainly not going to pick up a KO against either of these, and we know Thundurus should be AV. So, yep, I'm content to just Scary Face here and Max Geyser, ensure the knockout onto Thundurus. And I don't, like, the thing is, like, Calyrex doesn't really do very much into Grimmsnarl either, right? So I can just Light Screen. Okay. The Astro Barrage, perfect. Pretty good damage, but certainly not enough. And now we get a knockout, beautiful. And now this next turn I can go for Light Screen, and then whatever they bring in, if it's Whimsicott, for example, I can just Max Airstream. If it is Tapu Lele, then I just Max Geyser. So, yeah. I like the fact I didn't even have to play around the switcheroo here made things a lot easier. Now, maybe I have to play around switcheroo this turn, but at this point, actually, getting ejected out isn't even that bad, because I already had 2 turns on my Dynamax with Seismitoad, and in fact, it would grant me a free switch-in, which would be kind of cool. If it is Whimsicott, I think then my play is to Scary Face the Calyrex, but they bring in Lele. Okay, no problem. Now, that does allow you to Expanding Force, obviously. But I think their last one, is it? What is it going to be, actually? It being Whimsicott would be kind of surprising here. I'm definitely going to Light Screen right now. I think I'm going to Light Screen and just Geyser into the Tapu Lele slot. Now, the one thing is that Lele maybe switches out into, like, Whimsicott here, but even if you do, you still take over 50% and you get ejected out anyway. So, I still feel pretty good about it. I love the Seismitoad on this team, though. It's legitimately so strong. We've used Seismitoad before, but Physical Seismitoad this is my first time, I think, maybe ever using it in competitive VGC throughout all the years. Seismitoad was not exactly a very popular pick in previous years of VGC, and Dynamax just allows it to be substantially stronger because, 1, you cover for your 4x grass weakness, and 2, you also get so much value because of the diverse move pool that it has. Cool, they go for Astro Barrage, doesn't pick up a KO on either, beautiful, and now we should one-shot Tapu Lele as well. Once again, thanks to us being physical. Beautiful, it's another KO. So we're up 4-2 now, with us having Instant in the back. The Instant's obviously valuable, but once again, this could be the same position where they have Entei as their final Pokemon, right? And if that's the case, this is still kind of awkward. But Kyogre this time around has the Assault Vest, and no, it's actually going to be Urshifu. Oh, wow, okay. Don't think I saw that one coming. Maybe I need to stop bringing Incineroar. You have a speed boost here, so you can Astro Barrage. Now the thing is, this gets dangerously scary. 4 turns of Psychic Terrain. Yeah, this is still far from over. My opponent can definitely win this. Especially because I don't have Scary Face support anymore. Maybe I needed to Airstream just to get a speed boost there, so that I can outspeed this thing. The fact I never broke its Sash is also a problem. Both of these games have been hard because, like, I feel like my opponent has brought slightly better Pokemon than I have. I mean, does Astro Barrage just pick up a double KO here? I don't think I can switch into Incin, because then it just gets wrecked by... Yeah, actually, I think I just get swept by Calyrex here. Wow, well done. I mean, I kept ignoring the Calyrex, so maybe I should have just targeted instead? You know, the issue for us in this game was that I brought Incineroar. I needed Zapdos. I do have this Assault Vest Kyogre, but the problem is that I just get outsped. And the problem is I don't have great speed control going in the late game, so I'm just getting outsped by everything right now. Whereas if I had Zapdos, then I can at least outspeed the Urshifu. But now if you're my opponent, it's very safe to just Surging Strikes into Incineroar. Okay, I guess the one thing is they don't know the item on Kyogre, so if you're afraid of Choice Scarf, then we could still win too. So if you're afraid of Scarf, then you would Protect here and then just Astro Barrage, correct? If we had Choice Scarf here, we'd also win because they're not Focus Sash on Urshifu. Yeah, I needed to bring Zapdos over Incin in this last one. Like, once again, it's good Pokemon selection, right? Because if they have anything other than this Urshifu as their final Pokemon, we should win the game. But the thing is, this Urshifu just completely demolishes my Incineroar. Okay. I'm going to Darkest Lair or Origin Pulse here. I think we can't really win if they just attack with both Pokemon. Oh, actually, it's still possible if they end up Surging Strikes. Oh, no, it's not, is it? That didn't even do very much into the Kyogre. But I think 2 Astro Barrages would have finished us off anyway, right? So, yeah. It's such an interesting dynamic of matches, right? Because in the we were going up against the same team, but this time around my opponent didn't even bring Whimsicott, but it was a really smart decision because they recognize that they don't need Tailwind to win this game. If I had clicked Thunder there, we would one-shot the Urshifu, and then I could go for a Thunder Paralysis into the Calyrex. The problem in this game was that this Calyrex, after a speed boost, outspeeds my Seismitoad in rain, right? Like, Calyrex at +1 is faster than Seismitoad at +2, and by them setting up the Psychic terrain, I couldn't go for Scary Face onto this at any point either. So even though it felt like a really good early game, the reality is that Incin was completely dead weight for me, and it's because of how my opponent, like, the Pokemon selection my opponent made. And Urshifu was honestly kind of a wild card that I just didn't even consider very much in going into this one. So nicely done. And, okay, AV Kyogre is still such a beast. Like, it takes that really well. But we would not have won this anyway. I would have needed to click Thunder onto Urshifu and then hope for a Thunder para onto the Calyrex into a full para as well. So, yeah. It was Focus Sash Calyrex making all the difference, right? That's part of the reason why I never targeted it. The other approach I could have taken was to knock out Calyrex, but the thing is that I thought Thundurus was a bigger threat, and I still think it was, because I had Incineroar and Kyogre in the back. It's not like I feel super comfortable bringing either of those Pokemon out immediately, right? Until I can eliminate Thundurus. So, in the first time we went up against this team, Incin wasn't really that crucial. It just gives me this nice win condition against Calyrex in the endgame. But I think what the problem with Incineroar is in this matchup is that they're almost always going to Dynamax Thundurus, and so it's like I can't bring Incin until it's later on. And then like both the Entei and the Urshifu are actually really good against Incineroar as well. So it's like Incin needs a very specific scenario to thrive in this matchup, which is you eliminating Thundurus and them not bringing Urshifu and or Entei, right? Or Entei, like Incin being at full HP so you can survive a Stone Edge. So I think Zapdos might actually be the better 4th Pokemon in this matchup. You can always consider Ferrothorn, but I don't think Ferrothorn does it. Oh, I was going to say it doesn't do anything for us, but it would actually have been a switch into Surging Strikes. I don't love it, though. So I think if I were to replay, if I go up against this team again, it's Zapdos as the 4th over Incin. But that's why Pokemon's so interesting, right? Even if the teams are completely the same, execution can be completely different, and I think one thing that I didn't really assess as a really major threat here was Calyrex getting a speed boost from Max Airstreaming, thus allowing it to outspeed us, and then Lele setting up the Psychic Terrain to also bypass me from going for Scary Face. So the way my opponent had set the Calyrex up was really, really nice, and maybe, like, one of the things I'm thinking about is, like, going for a Spirit Break with the Grimmsnarl instead. Like, the turn I went for Scary Face, because it's like, we had Reflect Up anyway. In my head, I was like, oh, let's just eliminate the Dynamax Pokemon, but I could have potentially doubled up onto No, I don't think doubling up on a Calyrex works there, because they're just going to Airstream, Grimmsnarl, and Astral Barrage there. But I could have gone for Scary Face. Yeah, actually, I think this is a play. Scary Face, Max Airstream, turn 2 onto Calyrex. Brings you down close to your Sash, if not, just brings you down to Sash. And it gives me a speed boost, and it means I outspeed Calyrex for the remainder of the game. At that point, Thundurus is really low HP anyway, so I'm just one move away from knocking you out. Although, Kyogre, like, the problem is I'm getting outsped because of them having such fast Pokemon. So, yeah. Really interesting. The dynamic of that matchup is interesting because it feels like we have like the offensive matchup, but like they're so fast and like they can boost their speeds where even if I have the rain up, doesn't necessarily ensure a success. And Light Screen and Reflect only go so far when your opponent's team is like so hyper offensive. But it's really cool to see how different Game 3 and Game 1 played out today. And once again, that is truly I think one of the best teams you can use right now. So yeah. Always fun to play against it, and seeing the difference in how games 1 and 3 played out I think is super interesting. But that's gonna be it for this one, so thanks so much as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoy, don't forget to answer the question of the day, and I'll see you all soon. Alright, peace.